first episode of the United Way of the Midlands new podcast, Community Focus. Join us as we bring different aspects of community into focus through discussion with our featured guests. We will explore their experiences and insights as we shine a light on the things that make our community unique, from our commitment to service to our collective strength. This is Community Focus. My guest today is recently retired from his role as president and CEO of Omaha Public Power District. His approach to running an organization, as well as his personal life, is deeply rooted in community. While running a utility company, he turned his focus onto the customers and the staff that work so hard to keep things running. And as a result, OPPD recorded their safest year in 2020, despite being in the middle of a global pandemic. And they've managed to keep rates the same for the past 5 years running. Please welcome my guest, Tim Burke. Tim, you were recently chair of the Greater Omaha Chamber of Commerce. You are currently the chair for the United Way of the Midlands Board of Directors. You and your wife, Terry, served as the campaign chair in the 2018 United Way of the Midlands campaign, and you are taking on that honor once again in the 2022 campaign. So I'm seeing a common thread through all of that, a sort of a deep-seated connection to community. So where do you think that this dedication comes from?
You know, I think it went back early in my days. When I was a junior in college, I would even go back to high school where we had a requirement to, one of the classes was part of our community class where you had to go to a community organization and support them in some way, whether it was a nursing home, a youth center, it could be a number of organizations. And part of, my Catholic education was really around community. And that continued as I began to work as I was going to college. My last 2 years, I worked as a senior youth worker at the North Central Iowa Youth Shelter Care and helped kids that were struggling and had a variety of dysfunctional things going on in their life. It could be sexual abuse, it could be abandonment, it could be abuse, it could be a number of things. But it really gave me an opening of the needs in the community. And then when I got in the utility industry, you really began to see people who were suffering for a variety of reasons, because of medical issues, because of family issues, because of mental health issues. And in my first role in the utility industry, I was a credit collection rep. So I was working with customers to pay bills and helping them and finding ways to be able to do that. It was also in the back end of the farm crisis. So I was helping in the agricultural community farmers who were struggling at the time. And so it really became part of what I did and who I was. And that continued over the course of my career. And as we moved from Iowa to Nebraska, that's continued since 1989, since we moved to Nebraska. And so it also has become part of my family. My kids are actively involved in a variety of different organizations, whether it's Paint Up Nebraska, whether it's just a number of different organizations they're supporting through their organization or through their employer, but also things that they actively get involved in. And so it's become part of our family and what we do and how we do it. And we've been relatively fortunate. And what I've told my boys is because we have been fortunate in our life and because they were able to go to school and they have all good jobs, it's important for us to give back. And so we continue that. And so it's really part of kind of our family culture.
You mentioned your children. You have 3 sons who are all adults now, who are all active in their community and with area organizations. So my question is, how did you and Terry instill that value into them? Was it just by leading by example, or did you have them volunteering at a young age?
Yeah, I think it was a little bit of both. I mean, I think it's no different in the corporate environment than it is the home environment. I talk a lot about intentional leadership, and so as a parent, as a leader of an organization, you really have to be intentional. And so my boys, and certainly with my wife's support, we were actively involved in a number of organizations, my wife and I, that we supported, and sometimes we would pull them along with us and have them be part of it, or we engage them in a number of activities, whether it be in school or in church or in the community. But I think it has to be intentional. And so as a parent, I think you have to be intentional. about letting them know what's important to you as an individual and your family, but also as a community leader and as an organizational leader, you have to be very intentional about, this is really important for us. And in my role in the utility industry, we're kind of unique in that we're providing service to almost everybody in a broad region. And at OPPD, we really had three core values that led us. It was our passion to serve, honoring our community, and caring for each other. And certainly as it relates to the United Way, but it relates to a variety of other organizations that support this community, they align so well with giving back to the community. And in that kind of component of honoring our communities, it's honoring not communities such as cities and counties. It certainly means that, but it's broader than that. It's communities of people. It's people that have greatest needs, and how do we support them? And so OPPD has been actively involved in Habitat for Humanity, United Way of the Midlands, Partnership for Kids, just a number of organizations where we have engaged our employees to, participate in supporting those organizations and those people that have the greatest need.
As I said earlier, you and Terry were our campaign chairs in 2018 and are slated to be our campaign chairs again in 2022. Now, I know that this is no small commitment, so how was it that you and Terry were so willing to take that on in such a short turnaround?
I think it's part of just the commitment to United Way. As I've become more and more involved in United Way of the Midlands in my current role as chair of the board of directors, it's very clear to me the value, and I've seen it even more so during the flood of 2019, during the pandemic that started shortly after that. This United Way has adapted and evolved and provided just incredible services to our community. Originally, when Shauna talked to me about it, I thought we must not have done a good enough job in 2018. But because an individual was moving from this community who was planning to be that chair, Terry and I had that conversation. It was a very quick conversation. So, yes, let's do that. Let's support the United Way. And because it's a great organization doing great work in this community, and why would I not want to be part of an organization like that? So, and because I'm in this somewhat retired status, I have time to be able to do that. So we're really looking forward to participating in the 2022 campaign. And, in 2021, it's really to see what Lance and Julie have been doing just to, make it an incredible campaign. So coming off of the Lordsons and the Fritzes, and it'll be a great opportunity for us to take some of the great things that they've done and continue that work for the future.
Well, I had the honor to work with you both a lot in 2018, and I look forward to working you closely again in 2022. So one thing maybe not everybody knows is that you're in a band, lead singer, I think, in a band called Shenanigans, and you're in there with two of your sons. Correct?
That's correct, yes.
So how did that come to be, where you have now a band? You do some amazing covers. I think probably one of the meanest Chris Stapleton Tennessee whiskey covers I've heard. How did it become a thing where you perform gigs?
Yeah, we do. We're like 22 years old. It started with my nephew, my oldest godchild, and he was teaching at Pius in Lincoln, Nebraska. And I had just come back from 40 days and 40 nights at MIT in their nuclear reactor technology course, and I had the opportunity to be in Boston. And so we had a couple free nights, and I would accompany several others to some Irish pubs, and I heard some of their singing. I played guitar early in my life, and I came back, and my wife bought me a guitar for that following Christmas, and that next spring we had our first gig. And so it started that way, and my oldest son and my middle son became part of the band. My nephew moved away, and my youngest son came in until he moved to the East Coast. And then we picked up another dad and his two sons. And I think what's really cool, it's certainly good to do that with your kids. It's certainly cool to do it with one of your best friends. And our kids get along so well. We have such a good time. But I think what's really important, as we were talking about community giving and giving back to the community, we do about half of our shows each year for non-pay, and we donate our time We just got done with the Habitat for Humanity Brouhaha, where we donate our time. But we do some things for Partnership for Kids. We'll be doing it probably in the spring of 2022. They moved it from the spring of 21 or the fall of 21 to the spring of 22. But we do these volunteer activities to give back. And so we kind of have a joke in the band is if it's for the kids, we're going to donate our time. And that's really cool. And that's just an extension of us being really intentional with our community activities to support organizations in this community and to have fun and to play music and to maybe drink a little beer in the process. So,
switching gears a little now, when I contemplate your dedication to community, what I think is most impressive is that the Omaha Metro is your adopted community. So what advice would you give to someone who is new to the area or is just getting started in their career? How do you recommend they get involved?
I think it's to find something that interests you specifically. For Terry and I, it was kids and families. Terry volunteered at a Sudanese community through the Sisters of Mercy in La Vista and did a lot of volunteer work and after-school program, very engaged with kids and families. But it wasn't just this educational piece that she began to find out there were greater needs. There were other kind of community needs that these individuals and these families had. I think there's a way for you just to get involved. Find that organization that touches your heart, touches your mind, touches your soul, and then get actively involved. And there's a variety of ways to do that through committees, through service, through volunteer. And, I would just say you have to be intentional. Take that step, take that action to be able to get engaged. And if you're not really sure, call the United Way of the Midlands. Somebody will be able to talk about the organizations that they support, whether it's educational needs or mental health needs or family needs or individual children needs or financial needs. And if you have an interest in those, we can certainly align you with an organization that you can support. And the United Way does a variety of things during the year that I know we engaged our OPPD family on, whether you go to the Sienna Francis House or wherever you go to help support that organization in some way, just to get your kind of tentacles out in that community organization. And what I have found is that when people have gotten involved with United Way and these kinds of organizations, they see a different part of Omaha than they see in their community that they may live in, or their subdivision they live in, or their suburb that they live in. And they never really see that part of Omaha that maybe has the greatest needs. And it's an opportunity to kind of open our eyes, open our minds, open our hearts to help support these great causes.
That's a really great point about how isolated we can become in our smaller circles of community. I know that I'm certainly guilty of not always looking outside of my immediate circle. So, as we began developing this podcast, it occurred to me that I have a unique opportunity to pick the brains of several highly successful leaders who have reached that aspirational point in their careers. Was there ever any advice given to you, maybe early on in your career, that you now realize in retrospect wasn't necessarily the best advice?
Early on in my career, I had a leader at that time, essentially tell me that you as a leader had to make decisions. And I actually kind of believed that for a period of time. But I will tell you, even though I think it's important for a CEO or a leader to make decisions, I think it's important to engage their team. And part of that is just to get a different perspective and insight. I have my own biases that I have on a number of different things, and my own experiences and background, and whether it's work experiences or personal experiences. But I think that bad advice was there is an opportunity for you to engage your leadership team to make better decisions. And I think what's kind of how that relates to whether it's United Way or some of the other organizations, it's we get people in the community together. We just spent multiple weeks on strategic planning with 50 or 60 leaders in the community. And it wasn't just one person. It wasn't Shauna Forsberg that made this decision, or Tim Burke, the upcoming board chair, that made this decision about the strategy. It was 50 or 60 people with insights and perspectives about what this organization ought to do. And so I would say that advice was bad advice. But it was a time where autocratic management was living well, but that's not probably the best leadership style that matches with me and my engagement with leadership teams or really employees throughout the organizations that I've been part of, who really could give you insights on the impact of these decisions and their feedback and what it means to them, which I think is really important.
I agree. I think it really echoes the Andy Stanley saying, the higher you go, the less you know. Tim, thank you so much for being our first guest in Community Focus and for all the work you do with United Way of the Midlands. This has been Community Focus. Community Focus is produced by United Way of the Midlands with executive producer Jill Samuelson. It has been edited by me, Andrew Matson, and is a copyright of United Way of the Midlands 2021.